Hello. So this evening we are taking a look at the Embraer E-Jet 170 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So this has been built by FlightSim Studio and it's been out for some time. When it was first released it got some very negative feedback because it wasn't really in a finished state, and it still isn't. But I've kind of taken the plunge finally and bought it, and it's in a much better state apparently than it was when it first arrived. So you can actually fly it around now, but there are still significant bits and pieces missing from the aircraft. So we're going to take it for a flight, have a look at it. I've spent the last couple of hours having a look at it, writing up a procedure, and I'll put a link to the procedure in the notes of the video. And we'll see how we get on. So you can see straight away the modelling of it outside is really good. Yeah, the quality of the textures and the 3D structures and the material modelling is very, very good. It's probably amongst the best I've seen in the simulator, to be honest. So you can see the quality of the reflections and the surfaces. There's not many polygons happening anywhere. So if we go and press the end key to come inside the cockpit, and then we can see it's a very modern cockpit. It's all screens and buttons and knobs and switches. There's not any gauges anywhere. It's all very much a modern aircraft. And we can go into the cabin as well. If we go and click on the door here, we can wander around. And I think part of the reason it's quite heavy on frame rate, part of the reason for that is the textures are very good everywhere and the structures are very good everywhere. But I know that's not a complete excuse because, you know, there are other aircraft in the sim that are very good in the same way. So anyway, let's press F. And I'll work my way through my own checklist that I've just about finished writing up, and we'll see how we get on with looking around the aeroplane. So it's worth pointing out before we get started, I'm using an Airbus Quadrant, and in order, I don't know if this is going to move, yeah, it will move while we're sat here. So in order to get the engines to go into reverse, there doesn't seem to be any settings to put them on the same axis. There's no like calibration in a tablet or anything. So what I've had to do is use a button on the Quadrant to hold down to put it into reverse. So if I hold that button down, pushing the levers forwards then goes into reverse. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that one. I tried both of the axes available, the 0 to 100 and the plane axes, didn't make any difference. Okay, let's get started then. So Control and 8 will take us overhead. So we turn on battery number 1 to on, battery number 2 goes to auto. Then we go to the AC power section and we press the GPU button. Then we go to the APU control section over here and we click it once to move it to on. And we click it again, and it seems to take 2 clicks for some reason to get it to go to start. I'm not sure why. And it will fall back to on all on its own. So if you want to monitor that in the cockpit, you can look down on the display down here and you can see the APU coming up to speed. So we're not going to waste too much time looking at that. We're going to press Control 8 again to go back overhead. We're going to switch the emergency lights to armed. Then we're going to press Control and 4 and go and program our flight. So on the MCDU, the first screen you see is the radio page. I'm guessing that's because in the real aircraft you would obviously be talking to ground control to do things as your first port of call for powering the aircraft up, or to the ground crew themselves, for example. So we are obviously not going to do that, so we'll press the flight plan button, and that takes us to the nav page to begin with and shows us the AIRAC data for the database on the aircraft. So then we can go to the route page from the bottom right corner. We can see we're at Stansted. We're going to fly to Southend today, which is Echo Golf Mike Charlie. So that goes in the scratch powder, we drop that into destination, and it programs it in. And we can change the flight ID, so we'll give ourselves a flight number of ABC123. So it's worth pointing out before we get any further, we're doing quite a silly little flight today from Stansted in a big loop back round and into Southend. So we're going to fly out probably only to about 18,000 feet or so, even 12,000 feet would be enough. We're going to follow the Detling standard instrument departure and then do this quite short standard terminal arrival route, isn't it, into Southend. Okay, So you can see there's 3 pages here, so if we can use the previous and next buttons to go through them. So next page is showing a discontinuity on the route at the moment. That will clear up as soon as we put a departure in, so let's go do that now. So we are going to leave Stansted on runway 22. We are going to do the Detling 2R standard instrument departure. So that's done that, and we can apply it, and this will update itself. There it goes. So the route is now showing that, and we've got the option to fill in the arrival as well, which we can do. So we're going to Southend. Runway will be runway 23 and ILS for 23. We are not going to be using a transition, so we can go and do the star. We are going to be using the Sumu 1S star. We'll just double check that. So Sumu 1S, that's this one you can see here. So click on the button and we can apply that as well. So this should update in a moment. There it goes. If we go and look on the flight plan page, you can now see the legs reflecting that, and if we go next we can see there's the end of the Detling standard instrument departure, and there's the beginning of the star. So we want to go and program in the Dover VOR just to make this a bit of a nicer shape. So DVR in the scratch pad, drop it on top of Sumum and it should push it down. So it's doing it. It takes a while to calculate for some reason. There we go. So now we've got the flight plan sorted. Let's just flick through, make sure there's no discontinuities, so it's all looking good. So we go to performance initialization. So we don't need to worry about anything here. Go to next page. We can put in 0 fuel weight though, so if we press Control and 9, that will bring us over to the tablet, and we can see 0 fuel weight there is 6170. So Control 4 will bring us back here. So 6170, and we'll drop that into the 0 fuel weight, calculates the gross weight for us. Go to the next page. We don't need to worry about the climb rates. They'll look after themselves, so that will measure, that will influence, you know, how aggressively via the cost index, for example, the aeroplane can accelerate. So if we go to performance and go to takeoff in here, we can put in the wind at the departure airfield. So we'll go and click on information for Stansted, open the airport, look at the weather, and what wind have we got? 220 at 11 knots. So 220 at 11 knots, and we can drop that into the wind there, and it gives us the vectors. So a small amount of crosswind, hardly anything to worry about. And go to the next page and have a look. So it's saying flaps 2, that's absolutely fine. Then we can go to takeoff, and it's calculated the V-speeds, and it's all looking good. Okay, so we've pretty much done it. We'll leave it on the flight plan page for the moment, and we'll go and continue on around the aeroplane. So we'll press F to go back to the pilot's view, and then we'll press B to calculate the barometric pressure, which is already done by the look of it, which is handy. So next we turn our attention to the Flight Guidance Control Panel, or FGCP, or if you're in a Boeing, an MCP, Master Control Panel. So we're going to go and pre-select everything. So I'm going to do this from the pilot's view so we can see the edge of the buttons, and we really want to see this as well at the same time to see the numbers changing. So we're going to press the FD button first, which makes the flight director appear. It's a bit of a strange little flight director. We'll do the same on the co-pilot side. We'll set the target altitude as required. So we're doing the Detling standard instrument departure, so we're going to set the target altitude initially to 5,000 feet. So one thing to bear in mind about this aeroplane is VNAV is not implemented properly yet. So I've not played with it, I've not tried it, so we're just going to use vertical speed and flight level change as we go around our circuit. So 5,000 feet until we get to Detling. Set the heading bug as required, so we need to go and move the heading selector to 222 degrees. So we're just going to spin it. We're looking at the number down here, by the way. So we're just going to spin it until we get to 222 degrees. So that matches the heading of the runway. Set the nav mode as required, so we can pre-select the modes and you'll see them light up here, but the buttons won't light up until the autopilot comes on. So we can press nav and that will give us LNAV because we are in FMS mode and we have a fully programmed flight plan. We can press vertical speed mode and we'll get the VS flashing, and we can go and set 2,500 feet a minute, for example, for our climb out. So there we go, we've got a target of 2,500 feet per minute. So then we can also go and set the auto throttle and it will light up and go to takeoff mode automatically, and we can set the speed bug for that. So you can see the number at the top of the indicated airspeed ribbon. So let's go for 220 knots for the target for it. Or let's go for 200 actually for the initial speed. Okay. So if we go back overhead now, we can start getting more towards getting the airplane ready. So no smoking signs on, fasten seatbelt signs on. Go back down to the pedestal, control 7. We're going to uncage the cockpit door button, lock the cockpit door and recage it. Then we're going to go back overhead, control 8, and we're going to look at the external lights and we're going to turn the red beacon light to on. So at this point we could do the pushback. We don't need to push back because we're parked out on the parking area here, so there's no crew near us, so we can go start the engines immediately. Normally you wouldn't start the engines until pushback, or until the pushback tug tells you to. Or gives you clearance to. So engine start, we go control 4 to look at the pedestal. There are the power plant buttons here. We just turn them both to start and they fall back to run, and then you cover them up and that's it. And you will see the engines come to life slowly. So N2 is increasing, that's the gas turbines. So now the one shame about this is you can obviously hear cabin crew, but I don't know if it's a bug that we can't hear them or if I'm missing something. I've had a quick look at the comms buttons, so if we look down here, I'm not entirely sure why I can't hear them. It's all a bit odd, and if you walk into the cabin you can't hear them any better, so I don't know if that's something that's actually broken in the aeroplane at the moment. Hopefully somebody in the comments can let me know that one. It's probably something I'm missing. Okay, so we're waiting for the engines to spool up and get up to speed, which is all good. As soon as the engines are up and running, it looks like they are now. We'll go back overhead. We'll go and disable the bleed APU, which was on by default, and we can then go and turn off the APU control. The master switch, sorry, for the APU, so we're turning the APU off. If you look here on the display, it will say APU is shutting down. So we're going to also go overhead, and you'll notice on the hydraulic pumps, ELEC pump A for some reason is off by default. We're going to put it on, the others are all on auto. So that's done. We're going to go and set the flaps to 2. So if we go and look down here at the flap readout, I'm going to move my flap lever to 1.5 on the Airbus quadrant, which puts the setting to 2. This will update to 2, and it corresponds with the lever being on 2 here, look. Okay, whoops, I just moved it with the mouse then by accident. Okay, so overhead, control and 8, external lights, we can put the taxi nose light to on. And we can taxi out. So, off the parking brake. That strange noise you just heard was the APU rolling to a halt, I guess. I think there's some problem with the sound files in the download that I've got, maybe. I'm sure I'll find out soon. So we're just going to roll out to the runway here at Stansted. No hurry. While we're doing so, we can put the auto brake on RTO or rejected takeoff. We can also go to the radio section of the MCDU and we can switch the TCAS over to TARA. We can also set the transponder, so say if we wanted 2000, drop that on the transponder. And roll out to the runway. So once you get the plane rolling at idle, there's still a small amount of positive thrust, so it will keep itself rolling once you've got it rolling. I'm probably going a little bit faster than you normally would, but that's really to expedite this so you get to see the flight rather than watch me taxi around the airfield for 10 minutes. Obviously we're not using ATC today, we're just going to go straight out. So once we get lined up, we'll stop the aircraft and do some final small checks. So let's roll out to the centre of the runway, bring the nose round. Okay, on parking brake. So final things to do is just the lights really, so Control and 8. Go and put the strobes on. So we've got the strobe switch here and put the landing lights on, left, nose and right. Pull the view back down. Off the parking brake. Ease the throttles forwards. Accelerate down the runway, wait for the V, or wait for the rotate marker on the indicated airspeed ribbon. So you can see the nose wheel is going light, it hasn't lifted. There we go, so rotate, pull up gently, gear up. Just trim it slightly, flaps can go, hold it straight. We can press map by the way to see our route, and we'll engage autopilot and let the aeroplane take over. So auto throttle should take it out to 200 knots. It's beginning that left turn. I haven't found a zoom control for the map display. So there's two modes for the display. You can have map, which I'll leave on this side. If we use the other side, we'll put that one in plan mode. So this is obviously north facing, and this is aircraft oriented or track oriented. So we're coming up towards 5,000 feet. Now we're in the air and travelling. We will go and advance the target airspeed to 250 knots. Whoops. I knew that was going to happen as soon as the aircraft started moving around. Okay, so gear is up. So we can turn that nose light off. Shall we have a look at it from outside? It's a lovely looking aeroplane, isn't it? Okay, so we've reached our target altitude and the climb rate is being wound out now. Automatically, the throttles are coming back, although they're bobbling around a little bit, but they're coming back to hold 250 knots. It's quite good at holding speed, I have to say. So under normal circumstances we would stay at 5,000 feet until we get to Detling. We're not going to do that today. We're going to climb straight up. So we're going to disregard the rule book and go straight for 18,000 feet, just have a play with some of the modes here. So 18,000 feet, flight level change. So when we come through 6,000 feet, we will switch over to a standard barometric pressure. So we'll press the middle of the barometric pressure knob. If we sit up, we can see across the top of the dash, not that we need to. Okay, so we'll watch this go. We've gone through 6,000, so we click the top of this, it changes to standard. Notice it doesn't on the other screen, so we'll do the same on the co-pilot side. It's fascinating to me that these are not reversed on the co-pilot side. Quite often in the big jets, the co-pilot is a mirror of the captain's seat. You know, including the MCP. It's quite odd to me that they are not mirrored. It's a repeat of the same layout, which I have no doubt is accurate to the real thing. Okay, so we are climbing at a crazy rate, so nearly 4,000 feet a minute, so this thing can climb. So we're just coming up through 10,000 feet, so we can accelerate, which we will. We'll take it out to 300 knots. So it's interesting to see it's dropping the climb rate to favour acceleration over climb. And we can now lift or remove the landing lights, or turn them off, sorry, because we're above 10,000 feet. Okay, so we are on our way around the trek. So let's go and acquaint ourselves, I guess, with some of these screens. So you get lots of options in here about switching data on and off, but there doesn't seem to be any way of controlling the zoom, well, not that I've found anyway. And I haven't quite discovered how TCAS works properly yet. That's obviously something I've missed, even though we've got TARA on down here. So if we go into the TCAS section, there's no on-off button as far as I can see. It's a bit odd. So no doubt it's something I've missed. Notice as well the auto brake switched back to off on its own from rejected takeoff when we took off. Just trying to think if there's anything else that's obvious. The tablet is quite basic. So there's flight details, so you can add them in if you're using SimBrief, and you can import your flight plan from SimBrief. Ground details gives you a jetway button which doesn't appear to do anything. You can use Navigraph charts, so I've not authenticated that yet with mine, but I've got Navigraph running alongside, so it doesn't really matter. Other than that, it does kind of what you'd expect. I think I paid about 40 euros for it, so it's on the more expensive end of the aeroplane, so it's quite shocking that it still isn't finished, to be honest. But it may be there's only one or two developers working on it for all we know. I've been quite stunned actually over time when I've discovered, you know, how small the teams sometimes are. Right, let's have a look at this. So on the way into Sumum, we need to be at 6,000 feet when we get to Gegmu. Okay. So that's the only real concern. That's the end of the arrival route. That's the beginning of the approach. So between Gegmu and CI123, let's just have a quick look. So Southend Airport. Let's get rid of this chart out of the way. So Southend Airport, what's the elevation for it? 36 feet, so it's almost at sea level. So we probably want 2,600 feet, so it's saying above 2,000 feet on the way into the ILS, which would ensure you do come in below the beam. So that's not a problem for us then. So for a few minutes we get to fly along watching the world go by. Should we have a look at it from outside? I have noticed there is some logic around the behaviour of the landing lights. So if we go inside and go and turn on the landing lights, they don't come on. So it may be that they are tied to other considerations in the aircraft systems. But I haven't read the full instruction book yet about, you know, what is connected to what. So that's something else to learn for another day. In terms of the MCDU, this is quite good. You've got the progress page, which works nicely. Gives you your anticipated arrival time. Got the flight plan page. It doesn't do the alternate view that the legs pages often do in other aircraft, which is a bit of a shame. You know, but what it does well, so you can't really complain. So I'll leave it on flight plan mode, so you can see we're heading out towards the Detling VOR right now. So I don't know if I mentioned this already, you can change the mode that the navigation system is running in. So if you press either VL or FMS, there's several FMS modes, there's several VOR modes, so you can do radio navigation, and obviously it changes from magenta to green when you do that. I think, and we'll see this happen if I'm correct, when we get near approach it will switch over to using the localizer automatically, but we'll find that one out. So there's no issues on the information screen. It's a nice aeroplane. It's easy to fly. Actually quite easy to control. I'm quite impressed with it. So we'll see how we get on. Fly bugging me that keeps flying across the screen. It may well end its life very quickly in a moment. Right, so I'm going to pause this until we get near a top of descent, otherwise you're going to be sat here for ages waiting for this. So I'll pause recording and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back. So as you can see, we are flying quite happily along in the Embraer 170. If we go and have a look at the map in Navigraph, you can see we are approaching Sumum, and we'll be turning in towards the arrival route very soon. So you'll notice on this map there is a hold, or an optional hold, that could be used by the controllers when you're coming in, obviously to do separation and various other tasks. So it got me thinking, I wonder if holds have been implemented. So if we go and have a look in the MCDU, you'll see there is no hold button here, but what about in the menu? No, nothing there. What about in the nav page? Ah yes, look, hold is there, but there's nothing in it, which is a shame. And I guess selecting one of these is not going to show an extra page. No, it's just putting the name of the waypoint into the scratch pad. So we'll just clear that back out. So we won't worry about holds today. Okay, so we're making the turn at Sumum, and we're going to now descend for 6,000 feet for Gegmu. So we're going to go and set our target altitude back to 60 over here, and I have a feeling if we do a flight level change it will do it quite viciously, so let's try it. And one of the nice things little nav map can show us is a projected descent rate. Yeah, look, the aeroplane is able to come down far more steeply than we need. So what we'll do is go to vertical speed mode and wind that back out. So say 2,000 or 1,800 feet a minute, which will get us broadly in the ballpark. We might have to go a little bit steeper, but the thing I'm mindful of is we need to slow down as well. So we're coming down to 16,000 feet. When we get to 10,000 feet, we need to get back to 250 knots. So let's go and wind the speed back now. So I'm just setting the marker for the speed bug to 250. So the aeroplane has overshot the turn look, or at least the curve is not drawn as accurately as it might. So let's see what it does about putting itself on an intercept route with the track. So it's going for about a 45-degree intercept. Have a look of it. It's always fascinating to watch these things, isn't it? To see how it manages it. So obviously the curves then on the track are not accurate, or they're not, you know, based upon the aircraft performance and speed. So there's something to be mindful of. So let's see how we're doing in terms of descent rates. So we're still looking good. We don't even need the descent rate we've got by the look of it. We could go... So let's try 1,400 feet a minute. So we're down to 250 knots, so we should see the throttles coming forwards, and they are, to maintain speed. It's quite good at holding speed. Within a knot or two, it's very good at it. So when we come down to 10,000 feet, we will turn the landing lights back on. Whether they actually come on is another matter, because there seems to be some logic involved in that. I'd need to go and read the pilot operating handbook, I guess, to understand that, and it's questionable if it's been implemented. I guess that's the only problem with this aeroplane, is you always end up asking yourself, is it something I don't know, or is it just that it's not working as it should? So while we're waiting to descend in, let's go and have a look. First of all, have a look at this chart. So 6,000 feet for Gegmu, and we'll also go and have a look a bit closer to Southend at the ILS. So 11135 and 233 degrees, and it wants us at 3,000 feet when we make the turn towards the airfield. So between Gegmu and the turn, we need to lose 3,000 feet basically. It shouldn't be too difficult. So 11135 and 233. So let's have a look at the radio page. 11135, it's done it itself. So we should find as well then the course is 233. Yep, it's already programmed it, so it's happened automatically. So I was expecting to have to change modes to do things, but no, we don't have to do any of that. So just to confirm about, you know, we didn't hear what we thought we should earlier. Let's go in terms of the cabin. Let's put ATIS on 136055. So if we go and change the COM radio, 136.055, and if we put that onto COM 1,
Southend Airport information.
yeah, we can hear it.
Wind 228 at 11. Visibility.
So then we'll detune it. Okay, so it's even more of a mystery why we couldn't hear the cabin announcements. So let's have a look at our projected descent. It's looking good, isn't it? We'll get to 6,000 feet shortly before Gegmu. And it may be that this has some clever logic around zooming in and out that we're unaware of. It's just a shame that well, at least I've not found a way of controlling it. Someone will obviously tell me that there is a way of doing it. So just thinking in terms of this, we've got transition altitude of 6,000 feet, so we'll need to go and put in, or we need to find out the information. So if we go to flights, information for Southend, open airport, and it's 29.77 is the barometric pressure. So when we get to 6,000 feet, I mean, there's nothing to stop us doing it a little bit early, to be honest. But we're not in a huge hurry. So you can see it, we've already picked up a reading for the localizer. Whether it's the localizer is another question. We haven't got any glide slope data showing up yet. Whoa, what is the plane doing? It's banking suddenly hard right. What is going on? Unless it knows about that hold. Nope. So I'm going to let it go for the moment, because obviously I can take back control if I need to. But there's something odd going on here. So we're still in LNAV mode. Coming down to 6,000 feet. Why did it suddenly turn off the track? Okay, we're going to selected heading mode. We're going to save the day here by force. That was unpleasant, let's put it that way. So this aircraft obviously has some problems. So we can see we are off to the left of, to the right of the track, to the left of the localizer, but we're getting close to it. So if you see, we've diverted over here for some bizarre reason, and we're going to come back in this way. We need to be at 3,000 feet very shortly, so we're going to descend down. So we'll move our altitude selector to FL3. I wonder why this is not showing. Oh, we're at 6,000 feet by the way, so we can go for the barometric pressure, which was 2977. So 2977, so we've done that. And then we need to descend. Let's do a flight level change. Just want to do this fairly quickly now. You can see we're just below the glide slope which has appeared. So we could just manage this now and come in nice and slowly straight into Southend from where we are. So it's still in FMS mode, it hasn't switched over yet. I wonder if it will at a given distance. So we could go for localizer mode. Localizer 1 would be Nav 1 radio, wouldn't it? So let's put this. It's winding out the descent slowly, but let's go vertical speed. And pull it back to we can just follow the glide slope now. Just out of interest, should we fly it in? Rather, I don't think approach mode will work. Oh, maybe it will. Interesting. This would be fascinating to watch then. So approach mode has been programmed then, as long as you are in localizer mode. Oh, sorry, VOR lock mode. So this is very much me learning as we go. I've not done any of this before. In preparation, just writing the checklist, I sat on the ground and fired the plane up. I've not actually flown it until this flight, so let's get the speed down. Speed is over here. So we'll down to 200 knots. So the airplane is locked on already. There's the runway in the distance in front of us. It's centering up slowly, so it should bank left gently in a moment. But the speed isn't coming off, so I'm going to throw the spoilers out. See how that affects the deceleration? Not a great amount, which is quite surprising. But the speed is coming off. So let's go the first stage of... No, we won't go for the first stage of flaps. It's too fast at the moment. I don't have a chart in front of me to know the flap speeds, so we're just going to have to be quite conservative about it. So just to have a quick look at those flaps. Oh, we were going to put the landing lights out as well, weren't we? So there we go. Get the gear down as well while we're at it. We'll watch that happening. So I think the landing lights might be connected with the gear being down. So you can't play games apparently with flying around with the... So spoilers can come off now. We've got lots of drag happening. First stage of flaps. Get the speed down even further. So whoops. In fact, what I might do now is take over myself. So let's go and auto throttle off, autopilot off, and let's start flying this thing. So give the wings a wiggle and see how it feels. So apart from those first few moments off the runway, I've not actually flown it yet, so this is going to be fascinating. So next stage of flaps. Keeping an eye on the localizer here. So localizer and glide slope, get them run the right way. Being pushed sideways slightly by the wind, not much. Next stage of flaps, going a little bit low. Glide slope warning. I don't know if you heard that very briefly. So we're just pulling back onto the glide slope. So full flaps. We're still low. Just get us deal with that now. Get the aeroplane in the right place in the sky. There we go. It's very easy to fly, I have to say that. It's quite difficult to judge the throttles, to stop it decelerating on full flaps, and we're going low again, so let's just sort that out. Starting to lose lift quite dramatically and getting slow, so I'm going to give it quite a lot of power. So there is kind of a sweet spot on descent by the look of it, which if you're not in it you can have trouble. A little bit high looking at the puppy lights there, which are agreeing with the glide slope for the first time in a while. So should we try out the reversers? Just watching the speed coming off. They're not very strong, are they? Okay, we're going for wheel brakes. flaps up. We're down to 40 knots, so we've got ages now to roll out. So that wasn't too bad at all in the end. We'll have to turn around at the end, which will be a good test of steering. So those flaps will take a little while to travel. So that was interesting. Okay, so strobes can come off, landing lights can come off, and we'll use the turning area at the end of the runway to double backtrack up the runway. So it'd be fascinating now to see what the turning circle is like. I think it's going to be fine. Is able to follow a tight track very easily. If we wanted to, though, we can turn incredibly tightly. So, welcome to Southend. So, there's obviously lots to learn with the aeroplane, but it's a shame that so much of it is still missing. But I guess if it's only a small team building it, you never know, do you? It certainly looks the part though, doesn't it? It's very good. Well, like I said, it's $40, sorry, not $40, 40 euros, which is quite a lot of money for an aeroplane that isn't finished. But what is here is great fun. We saw there was that strangeness. There's obviously some bugs in the navigation system where it suddenly departed on approach, and we had to take over and intervene. Okay, let's get ready to turn back off to the right and go and taxi into the parking area at Southend. So you will notice there is a Vulcan bomber at Southend. We'll go past it in a moment. If you're wondering about the frame rate, this aeroplane, this E-Jet, causes quite a big hit on frame rate. And allied with external third-party scenery, such as the Southend Airport, it has quite the impact on it. So before we get much further, we've turned the lights off up here, strobes are off. So I'm guessing TCAS needs to go back to standby. And we'll taxi down past some of these planes and look for somewhere to park, shall we? So while we're taxiing, we'll also go and remember how to do this now, turn the APU back to start. Except it's not going to let me. I need to look where I'm going. Control 8. I think the trick is you need to click on where it says start. It's not immediately obvious. Okay, shall we park here? Next to this. Yeah, there's a clear space here, although how wide are our wings? I think we'll fit. Try not to skid the front tires across the concrete hay. So we'll get the APU back on in case we don't get external power. I'm not sure you can get external power with this aircraft, to be honest. Okay, parking brake on. And APU is up and running, so we should be able to just shut the engines down by turning the master knobs back to stop. So then we can go and turn off the seat belts and smoking signs, turn the nav lights off, turn the beacon lights off. Obviously there's more to do in terms of shutting the aeroplane down, but you get the idea. It's a nice aeroplane, isn't it? I have no idea if we can operate the doors. Let's have a look. Do we get control of that through here somewhere? Ground? Apparently not. There's only a jetway button. That's a shame, isn't it? But there is a calibration section. I missed that earlier. Ah, so maybe we can get it. Yes, reverser is on axis, so that is there. Okay. That makes sense. Brilliant. So you can control the throttles properly. Very good. But yeah, I'm torn really with this aeroplane. It's almost great, but there's bits missing. But yeah, obviously we're all looking forward to the Fokker F-28 from Just Flight arriving soon. So yeah, this might get consigned to the sidelines for some time, but yeah, it's a good start though. It's an interesting aeroplane, and I'll obviously be flying it again soon. So I'll see you again soon. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So this was the Embraer 170 E-Jet from, let me get the name of the company right before I go and mangle it, FlightSim Studios. I actually bought it from Sim Market, who somehow subcontracted it through Aerosoft to do the deal for the download. It's all very complicated these days. So yeah, so you can buy it from Aerosoft or Sim Market by the look of it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. See you again soon.